There was a great rabbi, his name is Rabbi Eliezer Silver. After the Holocaust in 1945, he went on a mission to save Jewish children. During the Holocaust, there were many women that were taking their children, they were putting them into monasteries, into churches, because they were afraid that the Nazis are going to catch up with them and eventually they're going to be sent off to the concentration camps, and they didn't want their kids to face the same faith. They didn't want their kids to die in the hands of the Nazis. So they would take their little kids, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, and they would put them into monasteries, into churches. And these kids will grow up with priests, with nuns. And all they knew was just the Pope, the priest, the Christianity. The Germans were Christian. And this is what they were taught. And then when the Holocaust was over, this rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer Silver, went on a mission. He's going to go find all these kids, and he's going to bring them back home. Unfortunately, many of the parents didn't come back alive. They didn't make it in the concentration camps. So they told Rabbi Silver, how are you going to find these children? You can't even identify them. You're going to walk in there, they're going to be wearing crosses. They're not going to be wearing a yarmulke, they're not wearing tzitzit. How are you going to know they're Jewish? How are you going to know which kid is Jewish and which kid is not? He says, I have no clue, but one thing I know is Hashem is going to give me divine assistance. I'm on a mission that's holy, and God's going to help me return the Jews. He had to go into a church. He went to the priest, he told him, I'm looking for these kids. He went into the monastery. And the priest told him, how are you going to find these Jewish kids? You can't even identify them. He says, just let me walk into that room with all those kids, I'll figure it out. And the priest said, by all means, he let him in. There were hundreds upon hundreds of kids sitting there. And he's looking around. You will never be able to differentiate between the Jewish kids and the non-Jewish kids. They had the same haircuts, they had the same looks. They even changed their last name. They changed their first name. There was no way to identify them. Even their family trees, they changed them. So the Germans cannot catch on to them and realize that they're Jewish and will end up killing them. They wanted to make sure that they will stay with them and they'll grow up Christians, believing that they are Christians. And the rabbi was standing in front of them. He wasn't sure what to do next. Started praying to Hashem, Hashem, please help me figure it out. And suddenly, something came to his mind. He started screaming, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And at that moment, all of a sudden, if you look around the room, you will notice that a lot of those kids, you'll see tears tumbling down their cheeks. And they started screaming Shema along with him. Because they remembered as little kids, this is what their parents were teaching them. Their parents would sit by their bedside every single night. They would hold onto their little hands and they would recite Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. This is what we hold on to our entire lives. And at that moment, when those kids heard those words, they remembered that they are Jewish. And then the rabbi turned to the priest and he says, I'm taking all these kids home with me tonight. And the priest had no choice but to let them go. And he was able to return them back home. But through what means? Through the power of the Shema.